Hey there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new video. Before we jump into today's projects, I did want to mention that today I'm participating in Simon Says Stamp's Smitten and Sweetheart release blog hop. So if you head on over to my blog, if you're not there already, you can find links over to the Simon Says Stamp blog and to other designers who are participating in the blog hop. We're all sharing inspiration using products from both of Simon Says Stamp's Smitten and Sweetheart releases. Smitten came out in December and Sweetheart just came out on Thursday this past week. And so today you're going to see a lot of really great projects using both of these collections. I wanted to create a 5x7 card, and I wanted to not only create a card, but something to have a little gift put into too. And I wanted to do some die cutting. So throughout the video, we're going to focus on a lot of different little die cutting techniques, and I'm basically combining them all into two different projects. So you're going to see a lot of different ways that I'm using dies with pattern paper, with ink, and hopefully throughout the projects, you'll get some ideas on how you can utilize these techniques for maybe making these exact same projects or making things similar with products you already have. I always love using die cuts with pattern paper, and this Wildflower paper collection from Simple Stories is one of my absolute favorite paper packs of all time. I'm die cutting the new Whirl diamond plate die from Simon's Sweetheart release, and I've cut it from some cream cardstock, and we're going to put it on top of this floral paper. It's so beautiful. This is going to be a background for the flowers we're going to add on top. I do want some dimension though on this die cut piece, so I'm going to put little 3D foam squares from Simon Says Stamp on the back side, so that way when I glue it down onto my pattern paper, it'll have some lift. So this is the Bestie die from the release, and I'm die cutting this from some matte gold cardstock and also cream cardstock so that I can create a dimensional sentiment for the card. So I die cut the main sentiment from the cream and the gold, and we're going to stack those two together with some liquid glue so that way it's a little bit more dimensional off of the shadow layer. The shadow layer is also made from that same cream cardstock, and that will look good on top of the cream Whirl plate background that we've die cut, and so it'll look seamless here. You could have glued the gold sentiment right down on top of that Whirl plate background, but I did like that solid color behind it, so I didn't want to see any of the pattern paper, which is why I chose to go with that cream shadow layer. With some white cardstock, I've die cut some of Simon Says Stamp's Aurora blooms, leaves, and flower pieces, and I'm coloring them with positively saturated inks. I picked a mix of different pieces to use on my card project. I used different colors of inks. I have Morning, Raindrop, and Dew that I'm using for the leaves. That's giving me a really nice dusty bluish green color by mixing all these three together. And I'm just working in layers of adding the Morning first, then Dew, and then Raindrop. And then that'll give me that really nice shading on the leaves. For the flowers, I picked out some pink and red colors. I'm using Cheeky, Punch, and Cabernet for the reddish pink colors. And then I also use Citrine and Cantaloupe for the centers of the flowers. So you'll notice when I'm doing the base color of blending, I start with the lightest color first and then just kind of soften that out towards the center. But then I bring in a very detailed blending brush and I feather the darkest color in with a flat detail blending brush. And that gives me that really nice shading effect. It gives me some really nice contrast on the edges of the petals. And this is another technique that I always enjoy doing by coloring die cuts with my ink. And it gives me the control of being able to not only add shading if I want to, but I can also use custom colors that I might not have for cardstocks, but I do have for inks. To make these Aurora blooms, they're super easy. You just pick out the shapes you like and then you can build them to create your own custom flowers. And I really like that because there's no rules to this. You can do whatever you want and make it look however you'd like. So to glue all my pieces together to make the floral bases, I put some foam squares. These are thin 3D foam squares onto the base of the flower so that way I could pop up the second layer. That way it gives it just a little bit of dimension, but it's not too bulky. Then I did use another thin 3D foam square to attach the center part of the flower, but then that final most center point I did glue down with a bit of craft tacky glue. You can use whatever adhesive you'd like. You don't have to add the dimension if you don't want to. So now that I have my flowers built, I did end up cutting one in half so that way when it was behind the sentiment, you weren't losing all of that flower and it actually looks like there's 3 flowers here instead. It's a good trick for being able to kind of get more out of your die cuts so you don't have to make as many pieces. So I'm starting to glue everything together. I did want to attach the Whirl plate onto my pattern paper before I finish everything, so that way I get a good idea of where the placement's going to be. I didn't want the flowers to get too low and start blocking out the pattern paper. So once I had all of my arrangements put together, then I went in and added some foam squares so that I could glue my sentiment in place. This Bestie greeting looks so pretty lined up in the middle here on this card panel. And I finished it off by adding a coordinating reverse Bestie sentiment strip underneath. And I used the reverse so that way it would have a nice contrast with the black. So to attach this onto a cream card base, I used some foam tape so that way it would have some dimension. And then I finished things off by adding a few sequins from the new mist embellishment mix from Simon's Sweetheart release. These beautiful mist sequins go nicely with the ink colors that I used to create the leaves and also some of the colors that are in the pattern paper. So this card is beautiful, and I love those bright florals, how they paired so nicely with the florals in the pattern paper. And it's a 5x7 card, so it's got a lot of space to be able to feature so much on one card. So off to the left, you see that cute little pillow box. Let's create that. I thought it'd be fun to have a coordinating gift box so that you could give this as a nice little gift set to someone. So I have the Simon Says Stamp pillow box die and also a Simon Says Stamp nested circle die. I'm going to tape these two together so that way they will cut at the same time. I want to be able to make a window into this pillow box. This is another fun way to use your dies. If you have a cool die but you want a window to show through to something else, this is always fun by taking some other shape and making that window to nest inside of it. So you just tape them together so that way they cut everything all at once. And I just cut it from some 49 and Market paper that I thought was really pretty. I have it linked below in the video description and on my blog, along with all the other supplies that I'm using. So this pillow box does cut all the score lines you need to assemble it, but I do want to put some acetate behind my window before I assemble. So I'm just going to use Simon Says Stamp lightweight acetate, and I'm going to tape it in place with some Terrific tape. I cut it so that it was a little bit larger than the window itself. And then I'm going to fold on the little tab that hangs off of the side of the pillow box, and that's what closes everything together. So I'll use another strip of Terrific tape. This is 1/8 inch Terrific tape, and I'll use that to adhere the other side of the pillow box together. So our pillow box is now this little sleeve, and to finish it off, we just need to fold along the score lines to create those rounded bottoms and tops. And the die, when you cut it out, creates those nice little notches for you on those tabs. So that way, when this is closed, the recipient can easily pop this open and get to the treats that are inside. So how cute is this? This is adorable, and it's a great little size for adding fun little candies to it. So I'm going to decorate it by using this Charming Daisy die from Simon's new release, and I'm going to color the die cut pieces with some Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink. I started off with cabbage to create the base color for my green, and then I'll bring in some kale to add some shading. And I did switch blending brushes to a little bit smaller sized brush, so that way I'd have more control and not add too much of a darker color all at once. That way I could keep track of where it was going, and that way I still maintain that lighter color underneath. So we get that really nice shaded effect here. And then for the flower petals, I just picked out some nice blues in Cadet and also Royal. And I did use both of those colors on all these pieces, so that way I would have some shading. I wanted the Royal color to be focused mostly on any of the petals that were going to be underneath or towards the middle portion of the petals that were closest around the center of the flower. So I'll glue all of my flower pieces together with Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue. This is a great adhesive for gluing die cuts together, and it does dry clear, so if you have any glue that might squish out the sides, you're never going to see any of that adhesive, which I really, really like. So our flower is going to get adhered to the side of my box. I'll put a few dots of glue here and there so that way I can adhere it down. And that's going to look adorable sitting onto the side of this box. And of course, whatever you put inside will be peeking through behind that flower, which I think is adorable. Bringing back those reverse Bestie sentiment strips, again, I'm going to actually hot foil one of them this time. I love using hot foil on Simon Says Stamp sentiment strips because they are printed with toner ink, so you can use toner foils with them. I'm going to use my Mink machine, but you could use a laminator. I've cut one of the sentiment strips down, and then a small bit of foil will go over top of that inside of a carrier sheet, and I'll run this through my mini Mink, or if you have a laminator, you can use that. I like to store my sentiment strips in Simon Says Stamps clear pockets. I have those linked below too. They're so convenient because when you have little strips that have already been cut apart, then you still have them all collected in one place and you don't have to lose any of them. Once my sentiment ran through the ink, then I was able to peel back the foil to reveal how pretty this looks. This is the glass slipper foil from ThermoWeb, and it just looks gorgeous on this sentiment strip. If you have any areas that overfoil, you can just take a soft cloth or your sleeve like me and just rub off any of that foil. Then I used just a little bit of tape to attach that greeting along the bottom of my pillow box. And the final step was to add some embellishment with some more of those mist sequins. I did want this to coordinate somewhat with the card, so that way it felt very cohesive together if somebody were to get this as a card and little gift set, that it felt like they were intentionally designed to work together. So here we have it, the cute card and the pillow box, which make a perfect little gift set to give to somebody, whether you want to fill it with a small gift or treats. You have the option of being able to do whatever you'd like. I think all of these different die cutting techniques came together so nicely, and hopefully you were inspired to try one, two, or all of them in either an upcoming project or you want to create the same thing that I've done here. I hope you were inspired and that you will definitely try these out for yourself. Don't forget to join us for the Smitten and Sweetheart Release blog hop. Information can be found over at my blog. And I will be back very soon to share more with all of you, so I hope you'll stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will be back with more to share.